There was 19-year-old Susie Sue, the girl from the London suburbs whose witch-like look inspired women and made men feel both sexy and submissive at the same time.
You had Susie and the Banshees. Susie was the dominatrix with the three pretty boys. It was kind of pervy. It was very good.
Everyone had their own look. Susie probably more than anyone. You know, she had that whole Clockwork Orange thing going, and she always looked fantastic.
There was Polystyrene with her band X-Ray Specs, sporting braces on her teeth and challenging the idea that female performers should be passive and conventionally beautiful.
Polystyrene had a major part to play. She was particularly empowering to women that weren't about looking girly.
X-Ray Specs had a great image and a great sound. They were so different to everything that come before. Yeah, Polly was a sort of anti-sex symbol, you know, and she wore like a bin bag. It was so liberating for everyone around. You felt like, hey, we can just look like, you know, how we want to. And the songs were just so different as well.
She sang like no woman had done before. It was a kind of scream, really. Some of the early songs, scream of desperation. It was all about consumerism. It was all about not being a slave to your desires.
Most people associate bondage with sexual bondage because they think it's perverted and, you know, they think of whips and things like that, but it isn't really. It's about any form of slavery and it's against that. And it's saying, no, bondage up yours, you know, fuck off tonight.
And Gina Birch and Anna De Silva, who were so inspired by the Slits' first gig that they started their own band, the Raincoats, in November 1977. Within a few weeks, they were playing their first gig. The Raincoats preferred ideas to proficiency and counted John Lydon amongst their fans.
It was all about you putting your own ideas forth and bringing yourself to it. It wasn't copying this guitar player and doing these solos and lots of fancy stuff. It was about you bringing what you had to the fore.
As well as American Chrissie Hynde, who dropped out of art school in Ohio and landed in London at the beginning of the punk scene.
When people talk about this subject, people forget Chrissie Hynde. You have a woman doing what no woman had ever done before, which is playing guitar very aggressively. You play with Chrissie, you have to rock. That's what she wants to do. She wants to get it down to the essence and rock, you know, just as tough as anything men could do.
Chrissie's abilities didn't go unnoticed by punk impresario Malcolm McLaren. She found herself part of a small pool of musicians who went on to form some of the major punk groups.
He was always kind of nurturing me or trying to help me out, which was fantastic, because I really looked up to Malcolm. We had two guitar just as a boy in the background. But we had one rehearsal. Vivian Westwood came down, and she was impressed. She goes, oh, Chrissie, you can really squeeze a chord out of that thing. Anyway, they never called me back after that one rehearsal, and the next week there was a new band in town, and it was The Dam.
These female performers were standing centre stage, and that was thrilling for young women up and down the country. Also in from America, now renowned photographer Sheila Rock was inspired by punk to pick up her camera and document the scene in its exciting infancy. She was invited to intimate rehearsals and met the artists at the forefront of the movement. Like the punks, she was learning her trade as she went along.
And I went around just photographing what I thought was interesting. You know, I met the Bromley contingent. I met Susie, Billy Idol, Steve Severin.
We've got a picture of Susie here in 1976, so definitely before punk went mainstream.
Yeah.
And she looks terrifying.
Well, she had that dominatrix look about her. Totally original.
She's got a T-shirt here which shows two naked tits, basically, on there. This kind of clothing, did that got a lot of reaction from people?
I think the audience was as expressive in their clothing. But because she's very handsome, she was just very imposing. Punk girls certainly weren't sexy, and it was almost asexual. But she brought something else to the scene, I think.
She looks pretty sexy to me.
But a kind of strength, not a kind of 50s sexy. And it explores very underground roots, I think, and dark, deep things that young people were wanting to explore. But Susie brought it out to the open, I think.
Yeah. That is Chrissie Hynde.
This was Chrissie before she sang. She was writing for the NME. She was the one that invited me to go down. It was near London Bridge. You know, and I had at that time no idea that she had such an amazing voice. She was going for it.
Really going for it.
Yeah.
It's interesting, that band as well, because it's a mixture of men and women, which is good, isn't it? This is kind of an amazing picture, isn't it?
I asked Jordan if I could photograph her. And I thought it'd be really good to get this amazing kind of sex sign. And I just walked across the street, and as I turned around, there was this guy wearing bell-bottom flares who looks a little pervy, looking at her. And I just thought, you know, this was like one of those magic moments.
His body language is amazing in this, because she is relaxed but confrontational, and he is simultaneously pervy and really cross.
Yes.
He's really angry. Look at him. It's a really interesting reaction to how she's dressed,
yes.
I think.
Yeah. I think that she's fabulous.
Yeah, she looks brilliant. Female punks played around with notions of desire, subverting male sexual fantasies through what they wore. They refused to be submissive. They hijacked the perverted. There was something glorious about all these different shapes and sizes of bodies strutting the 70s streets, wrapped in rubber. Malcolm McLaren and Vivienne Westwood's shop Sex on the King's Road experimented with the lexicon of pornography. They stocked fetish wear, slogan T-shirts and the infamous bondage trousers.
They didn't dress me. I had a few of their things. When I went back to Cleveland, Ohio, I had a rubber skirt and a Scum Manifesto T-shirt, and, you know, I really felt like the dog's bollocks. I did look cool, especially, you know, at a basement in Cleveland, Ohio.
I didn't find it intimidating going into Sex. I wanted, you know, a specific kind of dog collar. Oh, we'll make you one and that. And getting some vinyl trousers, they were great, and it turned out to be very practical because you just wipe the spit off.
Jordan, the shop assistant, was a living advertisement for the power of sex. She wore rubber clothes, a beehive and theatrical makeup. On her daily commute from Sussex, British Rail even put Jordan in first class for her own protection.
They let me travel first class with my second class ticket every day from Lewes to Seaforth because of the trouble they knew I was having. So they were really sweet about that.
I used to love PVC and what they used to call in my era wet look. To wear a little wet look Mac with gloves that matched. Oh, it was wonderful.
What was it about sex that attracted you?
I was doing a similar thing on my own to what Vivienne and Malcolm were actually aiming for. We were on a sort of parallel course in a way, and I felt very, very at home there.
What about get Jordan to put on some rubber clothes?
I saw myself as a walking work of art, really. Later on, when I went through geometric makeup, that was all to do with Mondrian and the people of Cow, which is a tribe.
A few people said when they went into the shop Sex, they were quite intimidated. Why do you think that was?
Vivienne used to grill people sometimes, you know, why do you want to buy this?
And what happened, I mean, if somebody gave the wrong answers, would she not let them buy it?
Well, sometimes, yeah. People were passionate about what they made, what they wore, what their meaning was behind it. And we just didn't want twits going out there wearing it for the wrong reasons.
Would you say that punk was one of the first pop cultures where women could appear threatening in that way?
I would say probably yes. It was a time of sexual equality, I believe. Women were quite liberated by it as well. And men and women could actually look very similar. And if you like, try and outdo each other when they went out. You know, they'd be like sharing each other's makeup. And it was a great, great thing, really.
There's always an ideal woman's shape that we are given. And women like yourself and other punk women didn't care. And there's something very refreshing about seeing women in all sorts of shapes, wrapped in rubber, in ripped T-shirt, whatever you want, walking down the street. There's something really beautiful about that.
It didn't matter what size you were, how tall you were. It was really how great you looked.
Punk also had its own sexual codes. Despite the rubber clothes and the provocative way of dressing, it was mostly very asexual.
Sex wasn't really a feature in the punk thing as far as I never really noticed that. I mean, some people were getting their end away, but it wasn't really the thing. You weren't dressing to attract the opposite sex. You were dressing to tell everyone to go fuck themselves, basically. It was a real up yours mentality.
As a guy, if you had any intentions other than intellectual or musical one with these girls, they were soon cut short because these women just had this attitude that kind of knocked that out of the arena. You didn't mess with these women. They weren't girly girls. They would stand eye to eye with you and give as good as they got.